Alright fellas, Tyson Fury this time last year was seen as the king of the heavyweight division. He was undefeated whilst having some of his best wins against the likes of Klitschko and Wilder. To many, it seemed like he could end up going undefeated by the end of his career. Yet of course that wouldn't end up the case. I know you've seen what's happened over the last few days and we don't really need to go over it once again. But in the days since the fight, we've gotten a bit more of a clearer picture of what road Fury might go down next. So I want to break down all the options that he might just go for and talk about how likely each option is. But just before we start going down those roads, if you don't know, my name is Cloyster and I make videos on everything boxing. So to stay informed on the latest in the sweet science, make sure to subscribe. I think the first thoughts for a lot of you when thinking about Tyson Fury's next step will point towards retirement. Not just because he lost, but because he's always threatening retirement. In one of the more common moves in modern boxing, many big fighters threaten retirement really just to get what they want. And Fury has a huge history of this. Of course, with Fury we saw him threatening retirement after the Klitschko win, and after beating Deontay Wilder the second time, and after beating Dillian Whyte, and in absolutely every interview around 2022 to 23. And then of course, the last time, pre and post Ngannou fight. Fury before has publicly threatened to retire at least 5 or 6 major times, so it's nothing new. So after this fight, of course, retirement was back on the table, with Fury even hinting to it at the post-fight press conference. But apparently this option doesn't even seem to be on the table at all. Apparently Tyson has assured his close friends that it's not over. And that's great news for us the fans, as the Fury show is set to roll on. For Fury, a second loss against Usyk isn't the end of the world. Does it impact his legacy? Yeah. But there are still many big money fights ahead for the Gypsy King. Now the fight which everyone wants is of course Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua. For a lot of us, we have wanted this fight for the good part of a decade now. The fight which everyone has wanted but never seemed to come truly close to happening. You can really put this down to a few factors. One being a lot of the talks were before the Saudi era, with competing promotions and networks making it hard for the parties to agree, as well as they seem to be unable to meet the financial demands of both the fighters. Another factor which is really just food for thought is, did either fighter really want to risk it all at the peak of their powers? I think that's a pretty huge part of why we never saw this fight happen. But now you have Tyson coming off 2 losses and Joshua coming off getting knocked out. Surely it's finally time to make this fight happen, right? Well, before the rematch, the rumor was that Joshua would end up fighting the winner of Kabayel and Zhang for the WBC interim title later next year on a Saudi card. And that seems to be pretty likely. Yet after the rematch last weekend, Eddie Hearn has come out and says he wants to push for the Saudis to make this fight finally happen. And if it's going to be made, well, they absolutely need the backing of the Saudis to meet the financial demands of both. This fight is the ultimate endgame for both. It's the fight where they can make the most money and rescue their legacies in the Battle of Britain. This fight simply would be huge. It would be a fascinating skill matchup, and even Usyk weighed in on the debate, believing that Joshua would get the best of Fury. Yeah, the truth is, none of these guys are getting any younger, and if there are years of negotiations and ducking still to go, we may never see this fight happen. It might be the mega fight which got away. But I think we're in a position where we're the most likely ever to see this fight happen. Turki Al-Sheikh and Riyadh Season have proven to make the impossible happen, and after so many big heavyweight fights they have wanted have fell through, this could be one they could finally make happen. I could see this fight happen potentially to the latter part of next year as a part of a Ring magazine card. He's recently gone and bought the Ring magazine off Oscar De La Hoya and has been on a massive marketing campaign to promote it. Alongside this purchase, he wants to hold big events in the sport himself, similar to say Dubois and Joshua, yet under his banner and not the Riyadh Season banner. So don't be surprised if later next year this fight happens on a Ring magazine card. But if the mega fight never happens, what other paths could Fury take? Well, one I've seen talked about is a rematch with Francis Ngannou. Of course, Ngannou wants his get back and believes he can beat Fury, and fair play to him, he basically beat him the first time. But I'm sure Team Fury will be running as far as possible from this fight. They've officially beaten Ngannou once, and they wouldn't want to roll the dice again. They would absolutely believe they could beat him again, and probably they would actually train this time if they ever did fight again. But if Ngannou could pull off the impossible and land that one punch, it would do irreparable damage to Fury's legacy. The first match was bad enough. He almost got beat up by an MMA guy. and if he did get beat, it would be horrendously embarrassing. It seems like a lot of us have forgotten about that first matchup, so I couldn't see them wanting to bring it back up and roll the dice again. So I just don't see it happening. Ngannou though will continue to talk about it because it's simply the biggest fight he could potentially get. He might have one more fight in the PFL, and then where does he go? It won't be back to the UFC, and he would probably want to swindle another big boxing fight. But I would love to see Ngannou fight somebody like a Chisora, somebody who will bring a true war. Yet then what happens for Fury if it isn't either of those two? Well, you could have a potential stay busy matchup against say British opponents such as Wardley or Cole, or you could go even broader for someone like a Michael Hunter or a Hrgovic. He could end up fighting the loser of Parker and Dubois also. Yet I don't really see any road back to a world title attempt for at least a year. And Tyson Fury is 36 years of age, and time is quickly catching up to him. Although he is still one of the most elite in the division, I think this last Usyk fight showed some of his key skills are starting to slow down a bit. And I don't think he's going to have a dramatic return to form anytime soon. You just can't outrun time. We could see a return path similar to what they did with Joshua. They lined Joshua up with top 20 sort of talent to help build back up a win streak to then roll the dice against Dubois. Yet for Fury, as I said before, there is simply only one mega opponent left, and that's Joshua. That's the match to make. But at the end of the day, they're both prize fighters. Fury will be chasing whatever is the biggest bag he can get his hands on. And that's the biggest bag he probably has left on the table, so he might actually consider taking this fight for once. I also saw someone compare this potential matchup to a third place World Cup playoff, which I found pretty funny. It's also amusing to think a few years ago we would debate who would end up the king of the heavyweight division. Fury, Joshua or Wilder. And it ended up being the little Ukrainian cruiserweight. But anyway, if I was a betting man, I would put my money on Tyson taking at least a 6-month break and then returning to most likely take a stay busy fight in order to build up to the eventual Joshua match, closer probably to the end of next year, assuming everything goes to plan. But now, I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think could be next for Tyson Fury? Do you see him fighting Joshua, Ngannou or someone else entirely? Let me know down below in the comments. If you did enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing, it really does a ton to help the channel. But thanks for watching fellas, and I'll catch you in the next one.